Welcome to Stuff They Didn't Teach Me in Sunday School. You knew it was coming. You knew it was coming. God had kept telling these people that it was coming. He told them through the prophets. We'll look at some of those prophets on down the line. He told them in the text we've been looking at, it was coming. The end of this nation was coming. It finally gets there. In 605, Babylon went up against the alliance of Egypt and Assyria at a decisive battle at a place called Carchemish. Babylon won. Babylon now replaces Assyria as the world power. On some level, that's actually good news. The Babylonians were a bit more civil and a bit less brutal than the Assyrians were. But it's not particularly good news for Judah. Now they're paying protection money to Babylon. And there comes a day when the king of Judah says, another mouse that roared, by the way, I think I'll quit paying that protection money. And Nebuchadnezzar, you know that name maybe if you've been in Sunday school. Nebuchadnezzar amasses his army against Judah, surrounds the city of Jerusalem, which by this time Isaiah has described as like a tent standing in a cucumber field. In other words, just this one thing sticking up out of a level plain. There are no more cities left. There are no more people left out there, just this walled city of Jerusalem. And Nebuchadnezzar comes up against it. He starves them out. 597 BC, he takes away the first wave of captives. He takes the brightest, the best, the smartest in that city and takes them off to Babylon. He leaves behind the poorest and the dumbest. The city maintains, he puts his own king on the throne, a puppet king, who will now go back to paying the tribute, at least for a while. 10 years later, and I've got to assume that the king was among the poorest and dumbest, because 10 years later he decides he's going to withhold the protection money, withhold the tribute. And Nebuchadnezzar comes back one more time, 587 BC, surrounds the city, starves them out, and this time he's had it. The Babylonian army reduces the city of Jerusalem to a pile of rubble, a place that the prophets will say is good for only jackals to live. The city is destroyed. This beautiful temple that Solomon had built is a pile of stone. And the Babylonians once more take away, this time, the brightest and best of the poorest and dumbest that they'd left behind before, and leave behind sort of the ultra poor and dumb on the land. The Babylonians put a governor over the poorest and dumbest left behind. The governor's name is Gedaliah. And just to illustrate that they've probably already taken by far the smartest people away, those left behind assassinate Gedaliah, the governor, the Babylonian governor. Now that's not going to go unnoticed in Babylon. And they are bright enough to realize that, so most of them take off and go to Egypt. By the way, taking Jeremiah along with them. We'll talk about Jeremiah later. But that's what this nation has now come to. Because they strayed from following their God, because they did it consistently, time after time after time, for about 500 or 600 years, God's patience eventually ran out, and he said, that's it. That's it. I'm taking you off into captivity. And so the nation is in Babylon. There's a glimmer of hope at the end of that story. Glimmer of hope at the end of the book of 2 Kings. 2 Kings chapter 25. And in the 37th year of the exile of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, in the 12th month, on the 27th day of the month, Evil-Merodach, king of Babylon, in the year that he began to reign, graciously freed Jehoiakim, king of Judah, from prison. And he spoke kindly to him and gave him a seat above the seats of the kings who were with him in Babylon. So Jehoiakim put off his prison garments, and every day of his life he dined regularly at the king's table, And for his allowance, a regular allowance was given to him by the king, every day a portion, as long as he lived. That's how the book of 2 Kings ends. The hope is the fact that there is a king in the line of David who's still alive and still treated somewhat like a king. That promise to David that there would always be someone sitting on his throne in his family, that promise is still alive with Jehoiakim, but the promise is alive not in Jerusalem, not in Judah, but way over in Babylon. God would bring him back, and God would eventually put that ultimate king in the line of David on the throne in the person of Jesus Christ. But we've got some history between now and then yet, some stories to tell, some things to occur, but God has a plan, and he will watch it unfold.